Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the North American Qualifier Tournament. I'm TJ, joined by Robert A. Wing. How you doing, man?
I feel a lot better.
Looking a little swole in that jacket.
I worked out over the break. Figured I wanted to look as good as you, TJ.
Lifted some chicken wings.
It was actually some cheesecake into my mouth. So,
okay.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
It's good cheesecake.
Yeah, we are one match away from concluding the day. This is going to be the final match. VLPS versus Firebat.
World champ versus a person who I desperately want to call Vlps.
Vlps, yeah. I believe it's his initials of his name. I don't even want to try and. I know it's Victor is the beginning.
There you go.
But he's actually a really high legend finisher. He's a really good ladder player. He recently was part of the team with Firebat, the U.S. versus China team, that actually took a victory in that event. So these guys have played together in the past as well, which is a pretty interesting thing to note.
Right, so obviously if you're Firebat, you come into this, you're the world champion. There's probably a lot of expectation on you to win the series. And obviously having hung out with Firebat on quite a few occasions, I'm pretty sure he's equal to the task. But for VLPS, what a chance to prove yourself.
Yeah.
You're already this far into the upper bracket. And now if you beat Firebat, you're one series away from the Americas Championship.
Yeah, for sure. And funny story, I was actually, when I had a casting break, I was playing some ladder on my tablet, and I ran into VLPS on the ladder.
Nice. He's gotta get warmed up. Gotta play your first few ladder games of the day, and then you're ready to go.
Yeah, I defeated him.
Wow. TJ, what are you doing at the caster desk?
I should be playing against Firebat.
Take off your blazer and go get in the championship.
No, I was playing Secret Paladin, so at the end of the day, it's not really that fair to begin with. But it was still a fun match. He's a great guy. His stream's picking up as well. Though, guys, we do want to take a quick chance to give a big shout-out to the people that make this possible. Of course, Blizzard, ESL, and Twitch. We have a lot of games in store for the rest of the weekend, and we've had some great matches today, and none of that would be possible without those guys, so big shout-out to them. Also, still doing the Amazon Packs giveaway, so if you guys want to continue to build your collection, maybe pick up those last couple of TGT cards that you need, you can get a pretty sick deal. I believe it's $87 for 90 packs, or 87 packs for $90.
Yeah, it's like having a bunch of minions on the board and playing a vastly discounted Sea Giant.
Wow.
It's that much value.
Those are just getting better and better.
I'm almost out of cards.
Yeah, you can head over to amazon.com/Hearthstone to pick up on that deal. Also, keep joining in on those conversations. Use the hashtag #RoadToBlizzCon. You can tweet at ESL Hearthstone or at PlayHearthstone. Final match of the day. Let us know who you think. Is it going to be the reigning champ, or is VLPS going to take the match for himself? I'm really excited for this one.
Yeah, I have to imagine Firebat is the favorite here, but VLPS is certainly not somebody to sleep on. We can see VLPS brought Hunter, Warlock, and Warrior, and Firebat brought Druid, Mage, and Warrior. I wonder if the Mage is kind of an Archon thing. Like, I wonder if Firebat's also bringing Mech Mage.
Yeah, I mean, those guys are teammates. They live in the same place. They probably talk to each other a lot about decks. That's sort of the point of a team in Hearthstone, since there's not really too many team events. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do have the same lineup. VLPS, on the other hand, he's been playing a lot of Control Warrior over on ladder and throughout the tournament thus far. So wouldn't be surprised if he has a Control Warrior as well, as opposed to Patron.
Right. So for Firebat, I almost wonder, since he has that Mage, if he chooses to start out with it and kind of go for a more like faster, aggressive start. No, actually, we see right here, Firebat is running Patron, and VLPS is running what appears to be a pretty straightforward handlock.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of demon handlocks today. I don't think we've seen any traditional handlocks. Maybe I'm mistaken. There's been a lot of Warlock games today. A lot of players have had that class in their lineup.
And it's actually totally possible this is demon handlock, but the cards we see on the screen definitely denote that is at least handlock.
Yeah, some version of handlock. Whether or not demons are in it, we know that it is some variation of it. Now, this is a really traditionally a tough matchup for Patron. The line has sort of gotten closer as time has gone on. Patron players have sort of found ways to overcome the giant walls and sort of perfected their play in a way to make the matchup a little bit closer. But handlock has so many tools to fight against this deck.
I would have to say, I also believe Firebat having his dog with him, as we can see in the background, has to give him some edge.
Yeah.
Dogs always make you play better. I always play with my dog. So.
Yeah. And Firebat is actually wearing the exact same shirt as me.
Well, he heard you were winning, and he wants to be like the future world champ.
Yeah, he heard that I beat VLPS wearing this shirt. on ladder, so he said, you know what? I need to channel the energy of that
Did
Hearthstone
you
shirt.
did you just shoot him a text? You're like, hey,
We're the blue one.
I got the secret.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we see here, VLPS has a very solid start for Handlock. One of the best ways, I've been playing a lot of Handlock this month, and I think one of the best ways as Handlock you can ultimately beat Patron Warrior is to get out those big minions early. You definitely want to, you don't want to give them the time to get to 10 mana, to have a bunch of cards. You want to start dropping Drakes, you want to start dropping Mountain Giants. You want them to have to expend those executes or even just have them. Because there are a lot of situations as a Handlock where you just drop, you know, turn 4 Mountain Giant, and you actually can just hit them in the face for 8 damage a couple times.
Yeah, which if you drop that Mountain Giant and all of a sudden they don't have the execute, sometimes they have to like swing into it twice with a weapon. All of a sudden it's like turn 6, they're at 4 health or 8 health, and you can pretty much win the game from there. And with the Doomguard, we can conclude that this is a Demon Handlock. Doomguard, not a card that's put in traditional Handlock, where Drax's is. So probably going to see Mal'Ganis and some Void Callers in this deck as well.
Right, we see the Drake come out on turn 4. Obviously, very strong minion. Firebat putting out that Unstable Ghoul, though, means that he has at least one turn to kind of get through it. And the World Champ is just straight going for that Drake.
Yeah.
He's not going to let it stay alive. He's just going to start cutting into it. And we see, oh, wow, that's a pretty perfect draw for VLPS to get that second Drake, and it leads right into the next turn Mountain Giant.
Yeah, this is looking pretty great for VLPS. The name of the game is Pressure in this deck. Also, forcing your opponent to use his combo pieces that he'd use later on to make more patrons or build up a bigger Frothing Berserker to try and clear the board.
Yeah, and we see Firebat has a lot of those really, really strong late-game pieces that he wants to try to end the game with, but he actually doesn't have much cycle. He has the Slam, he has an Acolyte, but he does have the shield block, but Frothing Berserker, second Frothing Berserker, and Warsong Commander are a little bit dead in his hand right now.
Oh yeah, for sure. Those are cards that you win the game with, but you don't necessarily throw them out on a board just willy-nilly when you're playing against Handlock, because pretty much every threat that a Handlock has is going to trade into a Frothing Berserker pretty easily.
Right. On the plus side for Firebat, we see he can use that axe to clear the Drake on the right. He can then possibly look into slamming and executing the one on the left. And then he does have he has the board. VLPS dropping the Mountain Giant on the next turn will be pretty hard for him to deal with from what we can see, though.
Yeah.
And he opts instead to go ahead and throw down the Acolyte of Pain. He's not worried about that Drake at the moment, and probably going to hit face with the Gnomish Inventor.
Yeah. He really wants to sort of test the waters before he does let that execute.
Right.
Make sure that he's actually using the execute on a target that deserves it. And I think the Mountain Giant is a little more deserving of the execute than the Twilight Drake.
Right. Firebat is a just world champion.
Yeah.
He also probably understands that putting that Acolyte of Pain down means that VLPS has to trade with it. You just can't leave it up.
Yeah.
So in a lot of ways, he's getting an extra 4 health off of that.
Yeah. And you can afford to attack into the Twilight Drake a couple times with weapons if you draw into them. More so than Mountain Giants.
Right, and we see he slams the Mountain Giant, which allows him to not only draw a card, but it activates potential for execute, which he does have one of in his hand. And then he has the Death's Bite, so it's not super clean, but in the next 2 turns, he can look at, getting rid of that second Twilight Drake.
Yeah.
And honestly, after that point, VLPS doesn't have necessarily a super great threat. Like, he can put down the Void Caller, and since Patron doesn't run Silence, that Void Caller will probably at some point bring down either Doomguard or Jiraxis, assuming Mal'Ganis doesn't show up. So VLPS isn't in a horrible spot either, but Firebat's just doing a great job keeping these threats off the board.
Yeah.
Ooh, Frothing Berserker comes out. I think be interested to see if he's kind of positioning that Frothing Berserker to, do lethal damage in the next 2 turns, or if he's just basically trying to get VLPS to just trade into it.
Yeah, I think trying to get VLPS to trade into it seems like what it's going to be, because that's just a 2/4 Frothing Berserker. That Twilight Drake is going to eat that thing up. And if you're VLPS, you have to be thinking, why?
Right.
Why did he do that? Does he want me to kill it? Is he setting me up for something?
Well, you can see VLPS really thinking about it, because a 2/4 Frothing Berserker, being able to get rid of it, is absolutely a gift. Like, that's what you want. But at the same time, it's clearly what Firebat wants him to do. So, as you pointed out, he's got to be thinking, like, is this something I actually want to do?
Yeah, it wasn't his only option. Yeah, he could have cycled with Shield Block. He could have played like an Unstable Ghoul instead, even though it's his second one. He definitely did want that to be traded into. We'll have to see what it's going to be like. You really only need one Frothing Berserker to win against Handlock a lot of the times, if you even find yourself in a position to do so.
Right.
But it's still, I'm curious as to why he went out for that play.
Right, so we see the Death's Bite comes out along with the Yeah, that's just a dead Drake. And he doesn't bother to hit into the Void Caller just yet, because realistically, whatever comes out of that Void Caller, he doesn't have a great answer for.
Yeah. He wants to make sure that he has as many opportunities to deal with whatever comes out of it as possible. We realize he doesn't have one now, so there's just no reason to kill it that turn.
Right. Interested to see. So he goes ahead and just trades pretty cleanly into the Ambush Inventor, gets it off the board. I was wondering if he might have considered Shadow Flaming and then seeing what he got. Obviously, the liability is that, Jiraxis comes down. Although maybe in this matchup it doesn't really matter, because 15 health against Patron is never a safe spot to be in. So maybe it's okay to just have that 315 body.
But really, how much health is safe, Rob?
No
health is safe.
I was going to say, I'm not sure we've seen a life total just yet that Patron is like, I can't handle this.
One day I hope to see that.
How many taunts? How much life? Now, if he does get down if he gets the Jiraxis off the Void Caller and taunts it up, he's actually putting himself in a very good spot.
Yeah.
Because you've already, you've seen one execute. He basically has to have the second one to deal with a 416 Jiraxis. VLPS puts down Lotheb. Obviously very strong against Patron, as a lot of their stuff is cycle and spells and that kind of stuff. And we'll see what Firebat do. So Firebat brings down Warsong Commander. Does he have lethal?
That's 6, 7, 8. That's 2 whirlwind effects on 7 creatures each. So just that alone is 14 damage. That's lethal.
And Firebat spotted it immediately.
Yeah, I mean, when you're the patron player in those types of situations, if you have Brawling Warsong, every single turn you need to count, especially if they don't play taunts. So he is going to sequence this properly, making sure that he gets the damage in just in case. I believe he did have lethal regardless, just with throwing the Unstable Ghoul in, but making sure that he gets maximum damage possible.
Well, that's why he's the world champion.
That could have backfired.
Yeah, there you go.
I didn't even see the Mal'Ganis is tucked away in the corner there. If that thing had popped out of Mal'Ganis, that would have been pretty bad.
Yeah, that would have probably gotten rid of his win condition, especially since he'd already played the one Frothing Berserker for tempo.
Yeah.
So, but Firebat does take game 1.
Yeah.
The world champion continues to world champion.
Yeah. I didn't even think about that Mal'Ganis tucked away. I was thinking, oh yeah, that's lethal. Math is great, but Mal'Ganis cares not for math.
Yeah, Mal'Ganis is just sitting over there. Put me in, coach. Put me in.
But the Doomguard muscled his way in there at the last second. Yeah, so Firebat gets the Patron Warrior win out of the way. He's got Mage and Druid left.
Right, so it'll be interesting to see what he chooses to go with next. Now that Patron is off the board, VLPS can probably take solace in playing Hunter now. Hunter's not necessarily something, especially mid-range or hybrid, they kind of want to play into Hunter unless you're, phone tap.
Yeah.
And you know what you're doing and just run Dreadscale. So VLPS, I would almost kind of expect to see Hunter come out, but, you're the expert here beating pro players. What do you think?
Call me an expert just because I beat VLPS online.
I mean,
there's a reason why I'm here instead of in those seats. No,
because you're very good looking, TJ.
Oh, well, thank you.
No problem.
That jacket looks incredible with your cupcake t-shirt.
I do enjoy how tight it is.
Yes. Yeah, and, I don't really... The thing is, we don't really know what mage Firebat's bringing. So it's sort of hard because Tempo Mage and Mech Mage, while they have a lot of similar stuff, they do different types of things.
Right. Obviously, with Tempo Mage, you're playing more spells to kind of leverage the immediate damage and payoff you get for that. Whereas Mech Mage, you're actually building a better board.
Yeah.
Oh, we see Ronin in the opening hand to Firebat. This is quite possibly my favorite legendary from the Grand Tournament, mostly because I'm just a huge fan of the character. I love when he says, the might of Dalaran has arrived. And then when he dies, like, save yourself. And he gives you 3 arcane missiles. What a guy.
Yeah, it's like a story, like you're reading a book as Ronin hits the board and then dies.
Hearthstone, the visual novel.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
And Temple Mages now have that big 3. The Dr. Boom, Ronin, and Archmage Antonidas. The 3 that they top out at. It's you get through all their stuff, you finally manage to get through the 2 Flame Wakers, and then boom, Dr. Boom, bam, Ronin, bam, Archmage Antonidas. You're done.
It's pretty great watching Ronin come down, Ronin sacrifice himself, the arcane missiles go into the hand, and then Antonidas comes out and you just hear, aha, aha, just over and over.
Turn those arcane missiles into fireballs.
We see Firebat is running that, as we brought up, the Tempo Mage. So instead of at the 4-drop, a lot of Tempo Mage players play Mechanical Yeti because you get that spare part, which is a great activator for Flame Waker. But he's like, no, I'm just going to shred.
Yeah, there's, I talked about it a little bit earlier, there's a lot of variations of Tempo Mage right now. A lot of players think that Water Elemental is a great choice for the 4-drop, if you're going to run two 4-drops, Pilot Shredder and Water Elemental are the 2 to go for. I've seen a lot of players say Water Elemental is the only 4-drop that you need in the deck, which is pretty crazy, considering a month ago people would have called you crazy for subbing out Pilot Shredders for Water Elementals. But there's so many variations of varying degrees of aggressiveness or slowness and fastness.
Making up all kinds of new words.
Yeah, slowness, fastness, tempo magedness.
We see here Firebat choosing to just put out the turn 3 Flamewaker. So that's actually incredibly solid. Nothing frustrates me more than just playing Flamewaker on the board, because at 4 health, it's actually incredibly difficult to deal with.
Yeah.
You usually have to use a combination of 2 cards unless you can trade a minion into it, because Hellfire doesn't just clear it, Dark Bomb doesn't just clear it. You usually have to have a Mortal Coil, which he has the Mortal Coil, it just doesn't have anything to do the damage after using the Dark Bomb on the Sorcerer's Apprentice. So
yeah.
We also see interesting, Firebat got Frostwolf Warlord off of his Unstable Portal, which, especially with stuff like Mirror Image, the ability to just create cheap minions on the board, come in handy for him. It looks like he's just going to drop it down and get a 6/6.
This is a poor man's Sea Giant.
Right, he, poor man's Sea Giant. That's no way to talk about Frostwolf Warlord. He has feelings, TJ. And this is a really, really intimidating board for VLPS to be up against.
Yeah, for sure. He does have demons in his hand to pull out with Void Caller, but you can tunnel on those all day. If you're looking at a scary board, it's scary regardless whether or not you have a Mal'Ganis on board.
I was wondering if he was going to use the Mortal Coil on the Void Caller there. You know, he's hoping that Firebat doesn't have a Fireball and a Ping here, because that's all it would take.
Yeah, that is pretty crazy. And VLPS, he's like hoping. There's points when I'm playing Hearthstone where I just minimize Hearthstone and like bring up just like a random browser, sometimes just like a blank tab, just so I don't have to look at the screen to see if he has lethal and I just listen for the noises.
I found a video the other day, or a channel on YouTube, that just shows like kittens like playing with each other. So like on one screen I have Hearthstone and then the other I have kittens playing with eeach other, and when the Fireball comes to my face I just, no, look at the kittens. Look how cute they are.
When you want to BM, no, just look at the kittens.
Just look at the kittens. Firebat didn't draw Fireball, but he's kind of put VLPS in a really bad situation, although VLPS has no spell in hands. Not that Firebat would have known that. It's a hand-locked deck, and you would expect some spells, but let's see what he gets. Jiraxxus, and he can taunt up the Jiraxxus, which is pretty intimidating. So play the Molten Giant down, look at Defender of Argusing the Molten Giant of the Jiraxxus. So for now, he's basically saying, all right, you have to have a Fireball and a Ping to beat me.
Wow. Okay, so Counterspell. So this is the Tempo Mage that I like the most right now. It's a slower Tempo Mage. It runs one Flame Strike, usually 1 Flame Strike. Toshli is in there. Sometimes that is subbed out for like sometimes a Sylvanas, sometimes another big threat. Like if you don't run Dr. Boom, you can put that in. And usually this deck runs more 4-drops and is light on the 1-drops.
Right.
But this is one of the decks I like the most right now. Flame Strike and Tempo Mage is so in right now.
So hot.
Yeah, so hot.
We see Toshli, and Toshli is kind of the baddest of the gnomes, is I guess what you would call him. Show them no mercy. But yeah, thanks for laughing, TJ. You're a pal. So Toshli, obviously, you know, he comes in, he gives you a spare part. He dies, he gives you a spare part. And we see Firebat just go for the Flame Strike, and that's gonna help him clear out, obviously, the Molten Giant. And then Drax is just kind of there like, well, that tickled.
12 health to go.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, no heals. Next turn he can get Mal'Ganis out, which might just be worth playing just the Mal'Ganis, not trying any Void Caller shenanigans, just getting that Mal'Ganis out there to be immune to Fireball.
Oh man, what's the it's on the tip of my tongue. The card that 3/9 that blocks, that takes your
Bolf Ram Shield.
Bolf Ram Shield.
Sub in Bolf Ram Shield.
I was about to say Ram Bolf Shield.
That would be a different card.
Yeah. If only the Jiraxxus was that.
So we see VLPS. VLPS.
Off the top.
He dodged it for a couple of turns, and had he managed to get Mal'Ganis down, he could have dodged it. But we see VLPS, you know, he dodged it for a few turns.
Yeah.
Good on him. But yeah.
I mean, Firebat had been through nearly half his deck.
Right.
Like, the likelihood that he draws 1 Fireball in that amount of time is pretty high. So the fact that he managed to dodge it for that long, he probably should have been pretty happy about.
I was going to say, VLPS managed to dodge that for a few turns, but eventually Firebat was going to lay the esports on him.
Yeah, exactly.
So It's bound to happen. But congrats to Firebat, who now goes up 2-0 on VLPS. And VLPS has been playing these really, really well. I want to touch on the fact that his last turn, rather than play like an Azure Drake and then taunt it up to make a second taunt, he was just basically like, well, you're not getting through Jiraxis anyway. I'm going to put more power on the board and try to create a situation for myself where I actually win the game.
Yeah, which is a smart play when you're trying to dodge a single ability.
Right.
Is to just sort of put a clock on it. I mean, putting up a wall is great and all, but you got to win eventually before he draws that one card that he needs to kill you. So making sure that you put yourself in a position to win as opposed to just keeping going in a defensive position is usually the right way to go about it.
Right, and he probably also realized that next turn, kind of his only play, unless he drew more healing, was going to be Mal'Ganis, which has that 9 attack, which makes it obviously, very damaging to deal with. So, the combination of taunted Jiraxis, Dr. Boom, and Mal'Ganis, he's thinking, all right, I can protect myself and potentially set up a condition where I have enough damage to win the game.
Mm-hmm.
So, good on VLPS for seeing that as very high-level thinking there.
Yeah. So now Firebat just has one deck left to win with. He's got 3 opportunities to find a win with Druid, which is not really that tough of a task.
I was going to say, it's doable.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
It's pretty doable. I like, this is the first time we've seen Firebat compete in kind of this road to the Americas Championship. And he's come out with, the confidence and the fire that you would expect, obviously, from the world champion. So,
yeah.
Very impressed by him so far.
He came in as the 6th seed as far as world championship points go, 176 points. Most of his were through tournaments.
Right.
But he did have some, I believe, 1 or 2 top 100 ladder finishes. And he had one season where he finished top 100 in 3 regions.
Yeah, he also, I was going to say, he plays in tournaments, but he also still just plays a ton of Hearthstone. He just plays
all day.
I was going to say, he didn't take the title of world champion and decide to just rest on his laurels. Like, he's continuing to play and adapt to these new metas. Yeah, TGT is coming out, that's a whole new thing to get used to.
Yeah. What a huge story it would be if Firebat won the world championship twice in a row, 2 years back to back. It'd be pretty crazy. I mean, right now he's in the upper bracket, round of 16, and he is 2 games up on VLPS. If he wins this, what does he have to win? Just one more match in order to make it?
One more series, and he goes to the Americas Championship. And if he wins there, he has to make it through the Americas Championship first. So
that's a tough order, but he's getting closer.
I was gonna say it would be really awesome to have North America dominate the Hearthstone scene again at the World Championship.
Mm-hmm.
So we see VLPS sticking with the Demon Lock deck. Firebat has a pretty reasonable opener there with that Darnassus Aspirant in his opening hand. The rest of his stuff is a little bit more down the line, kind of probably hoping to draw into something a little more consistent. 2 copies of Force of Nature, which are definitely going to come in handy down the road.
Yeah.
But maybe not right now what you want to see in your opening hand.
He needs to find a mid-game threat. Paladin Treader, Savage Combatant, Druid of the Claw. Something on his next draw that's really going to allow him to just put more stuff on the board. This is going to be a big draw to see how this game goes. Savage Roar
2 copies of the combo in his hand right now.
Just put him at 28, and then you basically win.
He's got the coin. I mean, once he gets to turn 8, that combo's coming out. But interesting point I wanted to bring up. I believe in the Mulligan phase, I saw a Savage Combatant for Firebat. I'm not sure if you saw that as well.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I was too busy looking at your jacket.
Well, thanks. I am very reasonably kind of handsome man.
Yeah.
But I find it very interesting because Amaz was running Savage Combatant too, and we talked about how when you're on the same team and you're living in the same house and you talk a lot about Hearthstone, like maybe you come to consensus. And while Firebat was running Tempo Mage and Amaz was running Mech Mage, it's kind of interesting that both their Druid lists are using Savage Combatant because that particular mana spot for Druid has become very hotly contested lately as far as what you run at that spot. Shredder is kind of the old standby. But you know what Savage Combatant cannot do? Drop a Doomsayer.
That's true.
Savage Combatant is never piloted by an Explosive Sheep or a Parrot or a Novice Engineer. So it's interesting that they're both kind of going for that Savage Combatant at the 4 spot.
I sort of look at Savage Combatant as more of a 6-drop than a 4-drop.
Right.
I look at it as sort of like a 6-drop with a 3-damage battle cry as opposed to a 4-drop. And the 6 slot is very open for Druids because a lot of Druids cut Sylvanas in order to fit in more oomph in the 4 slot. So they do have Force of Natures and Emperor Thorsan, but I think the Savage Combatant is like a flexible card in that regard, whereas you can drop it on 4, but it does its most work when you drop it on 6 or later and combine it with a hero power in order to take out something small on the board.
So this is interesting. Firebat's gone right into comboing, not comboing, just Force of Naturing the Demon Lock. VLPS's face is pretty much the same as mine. Like, what? What does that mean?
That might be the first time I've ever seen that happen.
And Firebat's very, he's very, convinced of his play.
Yeah.
We might see a scenario where turn 6, he plays second Force of Nature.
It's a possibility.
Well, no, actually, he can't.
He could swipe.
He can swipe. Oh, look at that. All right, let's.
Doomguard Jiraxis is going to come out here. It is going to be Jiraxis.
And Firebat did not want that. He's, he kind of falls back in his chair. He's like, Jiraxis, you're too soon.
Yeah. It's one of those things where, I mean, at this stage, he's got like 5 demons in his deck.
Right.
He's tapped like 3 times. You really can't expect that Void Caller to just whiff.
VLPS might actually just defeat the world champion 4 damage at a time from Jiraxis.
Get through this 16.
Maybe Firebat's teched in the Black Knight. We never know. Now, so this is funny because Jiraxis obviously no longer has taunt, so Firebat can at least get to VLPS's face. But at the same time, Jiraxis is still just hanging around like, hey, here's 3 damage.
I'm a 315.
Right, so VLPS's hand is otherwise pretty reasonable too. He's got a lot of options. He could just play down that Mountain Giant if he wants to. He could play Thorosand. And he just goes for the taunt. He's, after what happened last time, he's kind of looking for that safer kind of play. Jiraxis has taunt again.
Yeah.
He's not a 416, but he's still pretty annoying.
Yeah, I don't know how Firebat's going to do this. Having that combo in his hand early on like that, both sets of both pieces, would just really hurt him. He just didn't get a board early on. He had the Darnassus Aspirant for so long by itself. It was getting really lonely out there.
Yeah, again, I'm not really sure what Firebat can draw at this point. Obviously, Ancient of Lore is very appealing right now because you're like, I don't have the answer in my hand. I need to draw some more cards, see if I can maybe get like a BGH, find a second Keeper of the Grove, something to get rid of these giant walls so that, I can actually just combo his face.
Yeah, but he's staring at 15 points of damage on the board. He's at 24 health.
Right, and VLPS does have that Doomguard, so it's not quite 1 turn lethal on the world champion, but we could be looking at a 2 turn lethal very easily. And this board that VLPS has assembled is actually very difficult. Even it's difficult to reduce the damage on it, right? Because there's basically 4 damage behind these 2 walls. That's just kind of impossible for Firebat to get to. And then on top of the Jiraxis that does 3, the Mountain Giant is probably the most easily cleared, and he actually heals himself.
Yeah, he needs a couple outdoor Peacekeepers right about now is what he needs.
Yeah, reach out to Uther.
Yeah.
Looking to getting some of those outdoor Peacekeepers, or Yadric the Pure.
Yeah.
Yadric the Pure would be worth on this board. Yeah. So we see VLPS. I'm sure VLPS. This has been one of those situations where I think if you were playing a ladder game against someone at random, you're like, I got this. This situation, I mean, he just healed with his Ancient of Lore. I totally have this. But against Firebat, he has to be thinking like, Firebat must have a plan. Like, why heal himself as opposed to draw 2 cards? And he even goes so far as to clear the Ancient of Lore.
Yeah.
He's taking a very cautious line.
And what can you do if you're 5-man in this situation? He can force Nature Savagery clear here.
He could double
with
roar.
He could, but does that line up nice enough to warrant using the second Innervate and the second Savage Roar? I
mean, it's definitely not something you want to do.
Yeah.
It's not a situation you're happy to be in, but if you're VLPS here and you see the double Savage Roar combo.
Double Savage Roar, double Innervate is what it would have to be.
VLPS's eyes, look at it. He's like, what's happening? No esports, please.
Even though you have 16 points of taunt, when you see double Innervate, double Savage Roar come out, you always have that slight fear.
Right, like
am I dead?
You tense up, like, huh?
Yeah, and then you realize that no, I'm far from dead.
It's like, okay, things are basically reasonable.
Yeah.
Now he does get rid of those giant walls and then concedes.
Yeah.
He realized he didn't have any more firepower, and VLPS is on the board now, so it's 2-1.
Yeah, and that matchup, while usually I think Handlock does have a slight edge, is very close. And
right.
If Firebat had drawn some creatures early on, if on turns 4 and 5 he drew like Powder Tread or Druid of the Claw, that would have been a completely different game.
Right. I like the fact that even though Firebat knew he felt like he couldn't win that matchup, he still went through the motions of just reminding VLPS he did have a double combo. Basically, he had all this power. It was basically the equivalent of Top Gun, of just walking up going, just Just so you know, I am here, and there's a good chance that if you didn't have a taunted Jiraxis a second time, I probably would have won.
Yeah, maybe put a little fear in his heart, affect his decision-making going through in the rest of the series.
I mean, mind games are a big part of this stuff, and there is a certain fear that comes with playing the world champion.
And Firebat just, he's a hard guy to read. He's a hard guy to play against because he's a hard guy to read. He'll make that play where on turn 6 he Force of Nature's your 9 health Twilight Drake and just puts it at 3 health. And you're thinking, oh man. Or against Handlock, he just throws out a Frothy Berserker, a 2/4, while you have a Twilight Drake on the board and still beats you. You're thinking, whoa. Like, what is this guy up to? These are some serious mind games. But Firebat's still in a position where he just needs to find a win with the Druid.
Right, and again, we mentioned the fact Hunter usually has a reasonable matchup against Druid. Patron as well. I believe VLPS is playing Patron. So if he is playing Patron, that's another matchup.
I think it's Control Warrior.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So we see he opts to go with the Hunter. And this is, I guess, more of the hybrid Hunter. Well, no, I don't know. I don't know if it's that hybrid Hunter. I would have to assume so. To see Lotheb in it. Lotheb is more kind of a staple of that non-just straight-up face Hunter.
Yeah, it's a really fine line between like different variations of Hunter. There's heavy mid-range, heavy face, and then everywhere in between is technically a hybrid Hunter.
Right.
You put in a Glaive Zuka instead of like one of your 2-drops, and all of a sudden it's a hybrid Hunter.
Right. I appreciate how flexible that term is.
Yeah.
Well, you're not mid-range, and you're not face. You're a hybrid Hunter now.
Yeah, exactly.
So we see VLPS has a pretty awesome curve to start out, at least for the first few turns. And he does have that turn 6 high main, which can give Druid fits. Over in Firebat's hand, he has Harrison Jones, which could be pretty huge later on. We have Keeper of the Grove, Shade of Naxxramas. So he has some tools. The Druid of the Claw is going to do work on turn 5 potentially.
Yeah.
Ooh, there's the weapon. Be interesting to see if he'll probably play that on turn 3, at least with what he has in his hand, and just look for that turn 5 high main, I would imagine.
Yep, definitely wants to save that. Usually a double 2-drop or a Pilot Shredder on turn 4 is what you want in order to go towards coining out the high main. Both players are curving out pretty well. Neither player has a completely blowout start, which are the kind of matchups that I like to see when it's Druid versus Hunter, is both players having reasonable hands, but not a single player having a crazy hand.
I love, if you look at the two players right now, like there's just so much intensity. VLPS has just spent the entirety of the series just staring down his screen and really concentrating it. And Firebat, same situation where he's really, really paying attention and focusing, and you can tell both players really want this. Keeper of the Grove down on the Mad Scientist, it's kind of interesting because he has Harrison, so maybe there's a world where you want him to get the charges on the weapon. Yeah. But he's just more concerned, I guess, about the tempo that a Secret could potentially bring.
Yeah. And we're getting to that point now where VLPS, as the Hunter player, has to start playing a little bit defensively, which is usually the sign that things are turning a little bit sour.
Yeah, he has some reactive cards in hand, or cards that you just want to close out the game with. Next turn, he can get out the high main, but for right now, what can he really play down that feels good? Yeah,
high main's a great card, but when you play it on a board that can contest it pretty easily, then it's still good, but not as good as it could have been.
Right.
And as the Hunter player, you do want to set up as good of a board as possible in order to play that high main, but at the same time, he is a hybrid Hunter, so you sort of plan on having the Savannah high main as sort of like the end the game tool where, oh, I'm ahead, I've done a lot of damage to him, I have control of the board, now I play a high main, and all of a sudden, you can't close it out. So it's a little bit different in mid-range in that regard, but...
Ooh, cat is for fight.
Whoa!
He goes for the cat. He's like, hey, let's brawl.
Yeah. He realizes if high main comes out next turn, that Druid of the Claw is going to do 4 damage to it regardless.
Right.
So you might as well, the difference between 4 and 6 health is nothing.
Now, this is really, really interesting because we see that in hand, VLPS has double kill command. Oh, and he's pushing. I think Firebat's going to go face with this hero power.
Yeah. Cat is for fight.
Cat
and
is for
bears
fight.
are for fight also. He gets a double bear. He has a bear that allows him to shapeshift into a stronger bear.
So let's see what Firebat actually has. So Firebat has 9 damage on board. He has 6 in hand. There's also a world where you could drop double Savage Combatant and swing for 5, which not strictly better in terms of raw damage, but I always enjoy having double Savage Combatant.
Yeah.
VLPS has to be looking at his hand, though, and realize he also has a lot of damage. Is there a world where he can set him up for a 2-turn lethal?
He can, but it's dependent on him going face with his high main. So let's say he decides to trade with one and then go the rest face. So he would kill command the Savage Combatant, go face with the high main, and then use the other kill command to face. So we do 11 damage to face, put him at Firebat at 12 health. Next turn he could bow, quick shot, hero power for 8, and then he'd just have to muster up 4 damage. So even if the high main was killed, the 2 hyenas would do enough. It's a really hard read to make. And he does decide to go with this, but getting the bow out quicker is actually better because you do 6 damage over 2 turns, as opposed to just saving that for 3 damage on the next turn. So
right, VLPS kind of opts for a halfway play. Unfortunately, by equipping the bow, he's going to make himself susceptible to Mr. Museum.
Yep.
So I can't really, I don't know. Let's look at these plays because there are a lot of different plays Firebat can make right now.
Well,
yeah, Harrison gets rid of the bow. That's 3 damage you don't have to worry about. That belongs. TJ, where does it belong?
in his storage closet.
In his storage closet. I don't think he has as many eagle horn bows as he has death spites. So maybe he might still be collecting eagle horn bows.
That's very true. But that is still going to be game. VLPS gives a subtle fist bump, but he does have enough damage to close it out. Firebat, I mean, you got to respect his choice to go for the very aggressive line in this matchup, thinking that, I mean, if he has perfect stuff and I go aggressive, I might lose. But if he doesn't have perfect stuff and I go aggressive, I'm putting myself in a great position to win. But it does backfire. VLPS ties it up, going to a game 5.
Yeah, this is very impressive for VLPS to take the world champion to game 5. And that last play, if you kind of really think about it, so Savage Combatant on the board, Cat is for fight on the board, and then you have turn 7, you know, does he have innervate combo? What are you expecting? And he gets rid of enough damage where he feels comfortable, but he still has that 2-turn lethal.
Yeah.
So VLPS played that out pretty well, and Firebat was actually kind of feigning that he had more damage in hand than he did with what ended up happening, and VLPS made a good read.
Called him on his bluff.
Yep, and that's very smart, in my opinion.
Yeah, so now the final match is going to be VLPS on Control Warrior versus Firebat's Midrange Druid. So traditionally, this matchup has gone in favor of the Midrange Druid, but things have sort of changed. Control Warriors have sort of evolved. They have a lot of different cards. It's one of those decks that has changed quite a bit. They have Bash now. A lot of players are putting that in instead of Shield Block. They have cards like Justicar Trueheart, which really make those grindy games go more towards in their favor, because getting 4 armor a turn is pretty insane when it comes to your life totals as the game progresses.
Yeah, so back in the day, this matchup was very, very much favored for Druid. Warriors kind of made the adjustment to start running in 1 copy of Gorehowl, because Gorehowl, as well as armor generation, kind of allows you to actually deal with the board, which is where Druid usually punishes you by having those big boards. Don't think we'll be seeing Gorehowl, but as you said, I think the Justicar Trueheart change, or the addition of Justicar Trueheart rather, and other changes to the meta have made this a little bit friendlier for the Warrior.
Yeah, and Gorehowl, I'd like to see that card make a comeback. We're not sure if VLPS runs it, but the limiting factor of Gorehowl's effectiveness is 1 time, because you're spending a whole turn developing it and only clearing 1 thing, but 2, the health. If you're attacking into things every single turn with a weapon, your biggest limiting resource is your health pool. And with cards, additional cards that help you gain armor more easily, like Bash, not only are you gaining health, but you're essentially gaining health in another way by clearing damage off the board, makes that card a little bit more valuable. I'd like to see that more in the future. Maybe we'll see more of it. I know players aren't as willing to take risks with so much on the line here. TGT's been out for a while, but really not that long for these players to start taking risks with their deck building.
Right, especially with, as you pointed out, Justicar Trueheart, the ability to generate just tons of armor.
Yeah.
Now, Gorehowl could be, possibly that kind of card that makes a big return against Druid specifically.
Yeah. So these players getting in that mindset to go in this game 5. So pretty fitting that the last match of the day is going to go the full distance to game number 5. The world champion, the reigning world champion, taking on VLPS, who I like to call an up-and-comer. He just sort of burst onto the scene like a month ago and starting to pick up viewers on his stream. He floats around top 10 legend continuously for the past couple months, so definitely a guy to watch, and we'll see if he can take out Firebat.
Yeah, I don't expect the world champion to go down without a fight, but there is something to be said about a world where VLPS takes out the world champion, who is much in his own, or in a very similar situation last year. Obviously where Firebat was kind of winning a lot of stuff, but he wasn't necessarily getting that acclaim.
Yeah.
And this could be the start of VLPS's own kind of Cinderella story.
Yeah, Firebat was sort of that humble guy from the Northwest. I don't know. He was from Minnesota, I think. one of those very cold states.
Right.
Just a humble guy. I just came here to play some Hearthstone.
Yeah, and then sure enough, he wins the World Championship, joins Archon.
Yeah.
And, ever since, whenever you see him in tournaments, he usually finishes pretty decently. Obviously,
Yeah.
since he's number 6 in points total.
And VLPS is just that Steelers fan with 2 beds.
Yeah, I like the 2 bed setup with the Steelers motif.
Yeah.
Very clean room. Firebat has also cleaned up his room. When I've turned into a stream sometimes, not always is clean.
Yeah.
We see, I thought it was interesting. You saw Baron Geddon in VLPS's opening hand. Baron Geddon might be a read against, decks like Patron, where you oftentimes have a lot of 2 health minions. So you use like an axe or a weapon charge, a shield slam to get rid of the undamaged one and then drop Baron Geddon. I don't know how useful it's going to be in this matchup, though.
Yeah, I think also it's a fantastic card against Secret Paladin.
Right.
A lot of times it's what you need to sort of clean up the board after you deal with Mysterious Challenger, like just to sort of like close out the game once you've sort of got through all the nonsense. But I like it. It's been classically a card that's put into Control Warriors often from time to time, so definitely a good addition here.
Yeah, we see Firebat is sitting 2 mana, and he has Coin and Innervate. He could put out Druid of the Claw. I think what he's wondering is whether or not VLPS has a Shield Slam, maybe an Execute, and he's just going to Hero Power this turn.
Yeah, he can't really plan out his turns as efficiently as he'd like. Seeing one more card is going to be a big difference to whether or not he can afford to use the Innovate. Like if he picks up a 6-drop next turn, or if he picks up like a 4-drop next turn, then it's really going to allow him to plan out his turns better. 3 5-drops is pretty good because he can Innervate out one this turn, and then coin out one the following turn, and then play one naturally the turn after that.
So if Firebat is thinking he wants to deny value to the Acolyte of Pain, he could just go ahead and put the Druid of the Claw in cat form again, and just go ahead and run that in. He's still left with a 4-3 on the board. We'll see if he chooses to make that line. He could also put out a Zerdrake. I feel like he's going to go for the cat play here. Let's see. Nope. Yep. He just decides to make a bear.
Yeah, bear. There it is.
So it's kind of one of those things where, so that's interesting. So VLPS looks like he's going to sacrifice the Acolyte of Pain and then also equip the Fiery War Axe, as opposed to do something like equip or use the shield block and then shield slam.
I really like this better because utilizing your early minions to fight is really good in this matchup, because having the armor gain later can sometimes mess up not only the plan of the Druid, but it also can be used later on in the game to take out bigger stuff. Because all of a sudden you come up onto turn 6 and you can shield block, armor up, and take out something with 7 health.
Right. It'd also be pretty solid if Firebat had that turn 6 Emperor Thorson. Yeah. That's a great way to remove it. It's a great way for later on of getting rid of something like an Ancient of War. Even Ancient of Lores can honestly be troublesome for the Druid or the Warrior to remove.
Yeah, and actually getting 2 cards out of Acolyte of Pain in this matchup is above average, I'd say. Usually you get 1 drop on average, because sometimes it just gets silenced, and most of the time it just gets wrathed. So being able to get 1 drop out of the Cruel Taskmaster Battlecry and the second out of hitting in is pretty good value for that guy in this matchup.
Right, and Firebat, had the option to coin out Lothab or coin out a Zerdrake, and he goes ahead and just does the Zerdrake, probably just looking for more cards. His hand is, again, kind of reactive and kind of more late game oriented with the Savage Roar, the Wrath, the Force of Nature, the Swipe, the Wild Growth. He actually doesn't really have, like this, assuming he doesn't draw anything, immediately he can play on turn 5. He could just drop the Lothab next turn, but that's not necessarily why you want it. So VLPS actually goes ahead and re-equips. He's like, Fiery War Axe, you're done. Deathbite, get in here, and gets rid of that Drake very efficiently.
Yeah. I like it. Having those 2 Deathbites, you're not afraid to just over-equip the Fiery War Axe, which is sort of become dead weight at this point. You got to drop it out of your backpack.
We see Shadow and Axramus come down, and then the Wild Growth, which, this is a good play. It accelerates him on to, getting to that combo faster. If he draws something bigger, he can play it. Emperor Thorison, though, just VLPS is really playing with confidence. Not even really giving much thought to his turns, at least on his turns. He's just going right for it. And, this is a pretty reasonable amount of stuff he got discounted.
This is not a situation you usually find yourself in as the Control Warrior player in this matchup. Usually you're having to deal with threats that are bigger than you can handle, faster than you can handle them. But this game, Firebat, it just seems like his Druid draws are not working out for him right now. He's had Force of Nature Savage Roar in his top 7 cards. I think all 3 matches so far in this series, or the last 3 games that he's played Druid in. He does find a way to remove the Emperor Thor's hand, not too efficiently, but he still is able to preserve his shade, which is going to be instrumental in closing out the game if he gets to that point.
Right, and we see Dr. Boom is 6 mana, although was turn 7, so VLPS, it's not like he got just a ton of sick value off of that, but he does, you know, put down Dr. Boom and just adding more pressure to the board. And it's clear that Firebat's not super comfortable with this board situation whatsoever. And we could be this is kind of a weird situation, as you pointed out, where the Control Warrior is a little bit bullying the Druid.
Yeah. Now, another line of play there, it would have been very telling, would have been to throw the Druid of the Claw into charge form, Savage Roar, and push the damage that turn.
Right.
You would have done 14 damage and put VLPS at 8 health with second combo in your hand. So even if he shield blocks, the only thing I would save if you see that is shield blocks and armors up.
See what the Boombots do. Oh, 3.
Ooh.
No.
And look how clean that is. Everything's at less than 2 health for the Baron.
Look at Firebat's face. Firebat's just Baron.
He's disgusted.
And I think Armorsmith is very, very much a sneaky thing here, because Armorsmith just bought him kind of a good amount of breathing room against something like double Savage Roar combo.
Yeah, Firebat just very, very slowly watched this match hope slip away. He had a 2-0 lead in this series, keep in mind. VLPS has now won 2 games in a row and looks like he's going to win 3. Firebat is forced to use combo here just to try and clear up some of the board, and in doing so, he's also giving VLPS even more health. I mean, it's only 1 additional health, but still, that's peace of mind for VLPS knowing that 1 piece of combo is gone.
Right, and you know, this is one of those things where we were just saying, can Druid get a 1 win in 3 games? And it's very doable until it isn't.
We underplayed the doable, but apparently
VLPS
had
other opinions on the matter.
Yeah.
So we'll see here. VLPS may just run Dr. Boom in, even though he'll die to the axe. Yep. So he's going to do this. Let's see if he swings or if he just decides to leave it up. He just leaves it up.
He does have second Despite.
Right.
It would kill his Dr. Boom. I wouldn't blame him too much if he swung, because he'd get health, he'd get a card. He still has a second weapon to close it out, but you still want to have to force him to deal with it, because if he doesn't have a swipe or a wrath or any point of direct damage, he does have to hero power it where he'd die. So keeping it up does have a lot of merit.
Yeah, and you can see, so Firebat right now is not super sure what play he wants to make. And this is kind of different from the Firebat we were seeing in the first few games. He was extremely confident. He was taking all of the aggressive lines. Swipe. So he is going to clear the board, although we know that within 2 turns, this could And Ysera.
Yeah, and he can fit in an execute here too, sitting comfortably at a 33 health pool here for VLPS. That Ysera should just about lock up the game. Firebat would have to use combo to clear it, in which case VLPS has Despite just to close it out.
Right, and he goes ahead, so he's not even going to have the option for the combo. He rats, sees what he would have drawn, plays Dr. Boom, and that's probably just going to be the concede. VLPS completes the reverse sweep on the world champion.
Yeah, and so far, VLPS, up until that point, was a very muted player. He gave a really subtle fist bump after game 2, knowing he tied it up. But he throws his hands in the air. He's got reason to celebrate.
No, I'm super happy for VLPS. Firebat played an incredibly well-played series. It just a lot of those draws as the Druid, that happens sometimes with your Druid. You get the combo. That's why running double combo, like, people always focus like, oh, you got run over by the double combo, but having 2 copies of the combo in your deck means that you can draw it, and you don't always want that.
Yeah. So VLPS coming in as the 18th seed as far as World Championship points go. So far now he's defeated Fishy, Just Saying, and Firebat in his run through the top 40. That's a pretty impressive lineup of players that he's defeated thus far.
Right, and VLPS just needs to win 1 more series, and it's off to the America's Championship.
Yeah, which is a huge deal for a player like him who, like I said, is up and coming, trying to make a big name for himself. Like you said, similar to Firebat in last year's World Championship.
Right, so a really respectful series between the 2, and it was very entertaining.
Yeah. All right, well, earlier in the day, we did have a little bit of an issue with the stream, and we did miss 1 match that was broadcasted, but we do have a quick highlight video to show you of Phone Tap versus Muzzy, which happened earlier in the day. It started off in game number 1, where we have Phone Tap naturally runs Dreadscale in his Hunter, and he's able to stop the Patrons in its tracks with the Hunter's Mark.
Yeah, that was one of those crazy, crazy things. We see here Phone Tap, playing Patron. makes a bunch of patrons, makes,
I like how
Dead
we cut the clips so that you can see the more and more patrons spawning, and you can see that's just a pretty standard patron game for Phone Tap going to that one. He took game number 2.
Right, and then I like that, just made more patrons.
Yeah.
Made more patrons. Muzzy did a really good job of using that brawl to great effect on turn 4. I remember he coined it out.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much game.
Yeah, basically a crucial time for that brawl to happen, and that allowed him to fight back and take game number 3.
Yeah, we saw Phone Tap here in this one playing kind of a slower secret-oriented paladin.
Yeah.
And Muzzy just couldn't really do anything. Phone Tap played that one so well.
Yeah, you could tell that Muzzy actually did have a brief moment here where he could anti-Killbot and use his Shadow Flame to clean up the board. But we're going to see it play out here. It looks like it's a lot, but I don't think it was going to be enough to make it him tie this up and bring it to a game number 5.
No, and it was super, super fun to watch Phone Tap actually play this slower variant of Paladin. And he curved out, if I remember correctly, it was like Mysterious Challenger into Sludge Belcher into Tyrion Forging. So
yeah, so Phone Tap did take that series 3-1 in the end. You saw that final match getting in for that last bit of damage with the Ashbringer from Tyrion. So Phone Tap, of course, going to move forward in the bracket. Muzzy heading down into the lower bracket to face off again throughout the weekend.
Yeah, it's been a very exciting day of Hearthstone. We've seen some great series. I'm super stoked about tomorrow.
Yeah, definitely. And if you guys want to check out the VODs from Muzzy vs. Phone Tap, you want to check out the whole games, you can head over to youtube.com/playhearthstone. We've uploaded the VODs. Unfortunately, we didn't get to broadcast that on stream, but if you do want to check out that match, if you're a fan of Phone Tap or Muzzy.
Or Dreadscale.
Or Dreadscale, yeah. Dreadscale Hunter's Mark combination.
Yeah, it was a very exciting game series, day of Hearthstone.
Yeah. And, of course, we are doing a little bit of a bonus thing here. The game code, you can get 10% off of all Blizzard merchandise, I believe.
Yeah, if you look around, you can see I'm wearing a cupcake for a shirt. We have Murlocs and
I'm wearing
journals.
my blue shirt, which I just got in yesterday.
You look so much better in it.
I really like the cupcake shirt, though. But the code down on your screen there you can use to get 10% off all Blizzard gear. We have a bunch of stuff behind us as well if you want to check out that or the shirts that you've seen throughout the broadcast today. Make sure you head on over there and do that. Gear.blizzard.com.
Yep. Some really cool stuff going on. Obviously, for those who follow the CM Worthen account, I've been writing in my journal about daily learnings about Hearthstone. So.
Yeah, so you can do the same thing. The Hearthstone Journal is pretty cool. But we do want to give one last shout out to our sponsors, of course. Big shout out to Twitch, Blizzard, and ESL for making all this possible. Of course, we have plenty more Hearthstone action coming throughout the weekend, and it wouldn't be possible without those guys. I believe we're going to return tomorrow at the same time. I believe noon is going to be the broadcast for the continuation of the round of 40 for the North American Qualifier Tournament. Do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to give? Any shout-outs? Any final words on your cupcake T-shirt before we close it out?
Yeah, this is just the best shirt ever made. TJ, thank you for coming out. Unfortunately, you will not be joining us for the rest of the cast, but as always, you're heart of a champion, and I guess you're going to go start your pro Hearthstone career tomorrow since you beat Vlps on the ladder. Yeah,
I'll actually be headed to the Philippines for the Southeast Asia final, so I won't be joining you guys throughout the rest of the weekend, but definitely bring it home, have a good cast with the rest of the fellas, and I'll definitely be tuning in. It was a pleasure casting with you once again.
Awesome, man.
All right, and thank you guys very much for tuning in. Once again, we'll return tomorrow at noon PST. So once again, from myself, from Robert here, from That's Admiral Chalky, and all the broadcast crew here at ESL, thank you guys for watching. See you tomorrow.